We're still on the theme of World Watercolor Month, which is the month of July. And this is the prompt list for World Watercolor Month, if you're not familiar with it. But every July, this is the 10th anniversary. And so the official World Watercolor Month, the gentleman that created Watercolor Month set up, and what he does is every year he will issue just before July the prompt list for World Watercolor Month. So we have been following along. Yesterday's was Rumble. So what I did was I used that prompt to do a single color or a monotone piece that I could use for tonight's show as an example. And so I used one color on this piece for Rumble. And it is a lighthouse with a what looks like a storm coming in the background, right? And here in Florida, what do we get? We get lots of rumbles when our storms come. And so that's what this was. And it was all done with one color. But the challenge with working with one color, and the good thing about it is it teaches us to focus in on what's called value. So instead of focusing in on all of the various colors, like what I did with the spice painting, you're disciplining yourself to learn and understand values. So that's your darkest darks and your lightest lights and everything in between. So this painting, this lighthouse painting was done using, let me see if I can find it here. I know I have it here somewhere. Yes, indigo. So this is core watercolors and it's the color indigo. And what I did was I made myself a little value chart. So you can get even more values in between here. This is just 5 values. You could go crazy and make up to 10 values. Actually, I have a value chart here. And let's see, this is from Diane Mize. I'm going to hold that up if you want to screenshot that, but it's Diane Mize. It's a free value chart, and I'll put a link to it in the description of the video later tonight after the show is over. But the cool thing is, see how she's got 1 through 10 here? And this is a value chart. So from the lightest to the darkest. And then she recommends that you punch holes in it. So I just used a hole puncher, and you can use this then to put up against your artwork. So if I had this and I could put this up against it and look through the hole and see what values I have here. And she's giving you up to 10 values to work with. For this particular painting, I just did the 5 values, but of course there's all the values in between, right? But that is using indigo, which is one of my favorite colors to do these kind of single color artworks with. But you absolutely can use any color with a few little considerations. Let's put it that way. So real quick, like, let me show you. These are little glass um, sushi bowls where you put your soy sauce in and you dip your sushi in it. But I like them for doing painting. This, let me see if I hold it up here, if you can see the color better. That is the indigo color right there. And the cool thing about these is you can, because they have this in the middle, you can set your brushes on there. It's supposed to be for your chopsticks, but hey, we're going to repurpose it for art, right? But I wanted to show you that's what I did was I just used one bowl and then put the paint in and just varied the amount of water that I used with it. So I actually have a little pile of them here that we're going to work with tonight to do several images using different colors. Yeah, great idea, Mark B says, right? Yep. Uh, so I'm going to show you first, before we get into like the considerations about the paint. I want to show you a couple of artists that were inspiration for this workshop. And the first one is a lady out of Germany. Her name's Carolyn Ben. It looks like Ben Keith. And so, like I said, I will have links to this in the description of the video on YouTube later tonight or tomorrow. And this is her Instagram page. And here is what got me going with oh, I have to share this. Now, I have done these are called value studies. I have done value studies because these are called values right here, right? Like the value chart that I showed you. But this is the Caroline, and you can see here, she has the same subject, but she's doing one with multiple colors and one with just, does that color look familiar? That's probably either indigo or Payne's gray, but I suspect it's the same color I used, indigo. And so she did the peacock with just the indigo colors here and the peacock with the multiple colors here. And the trick is, if you switch your picture to black and white, you're going to see if you have good values. And so this is what she did here. She took that same picture. So this is the peacock with all the colors right here. And this is the peacock with just the single color, which would be considered a value study. But look at them now when they're both black and white. What it looks like is, if you look at this image and you look at this image, the values are basically the same, right? Do you see that? They're basically the same. And so that's a way that you can experiment. And because if you say, my artwork looks flat, I don't understand why my artwork looks flat. Do value studies of your artwork and then switch it to black and white, or I'm sorry, do it in color as well, and then switch it to black and white and see maybe where you can darken your darks or lighten your lights, like add highlights or something. And so that is a trick that you can do. Take those, the one in color and the one in a single color, and make them black and white, and just see how close you're getting with your colors to the right values. Because you can do a painting like she was doing the peacock here, and she had all these beautiful different colors in it. So you have a light blue and your darker blues and a little bit of red in here, right? But was she getting the values right in order to make the artwork have form to it, and also to have balance to it? And that's where switching your pictures to black and white can really help with that. Oh, I feel like I'm going to need to sneeze. No, sorry. Another person that I'm so excited about, because we're going to do one of these paintings tonight, is Leo Dessen. So this says Leo Dessen Creation. There's his image right there, and there's the information about him if you want to snap a picture. But like I said, I will have the description. I will have a link to him in the description of the video on YouTube. And let me show you what he does. Oh my gosh. So gorgeous. So gorgeous. Ah, let's separate the pages there. So this is not single pigment, this is two pigments, but you can do this same exercise with single pigment. And we're going to do this tonight, is create a tree. What we want to get that effect is we want a granulating paint. So some paints are very even. The pigment that's in them has been ground up so fine that you don't see any, excuse me, separation, I mean, no graininess. Where this one, he uses paints that do have a larger particle size, and so they do what's called granulating. When you add a lot of water to them, those grains fall out and create this very gritty look. So the majority of this painting, it's a video on Instagram. The majority of the video is just black and then using lots of water. Oh my gosh, he just has that down. Here's one that looks, I can't tell, is that a cityscape or is it in the forest? Let's see. It looks kind of like it's a cityscape to me. I like it because it's very abstracted and I'm attracted to abstractness. But then here's something that's not abstracted, but you see your darks here using the white of the paper to create the side of the house there. And then whatever the pigment is with lots of water there. You could do this whole painting in one pigment. It's crazy. It's crazy. And then here are a few more of his. This one looks like a mountain with a little mining, a couple of buildings right here. Just black on white paper. And here you see him, you see how he's holding his brush way back here and not up close. That's so that he can get a looser effect as he's running the brush the um, through the across the paper. And then here, this is a beach scene. But what? It's a beach scene. All it is black and white, black on white paper. That's it. Or is it like a dark blue? No, it looks like black. So once you've found just the right paint to get that kind of effect, then you only need one color to create lots of drama as long as you understand value and you're able to oh, thanks, Barbara. Yes, she said watercolor tonight and that I give free classes almost every Sunday. Yes, it's true, except when I have to go over and visit my grandbabies, right? Then that's the one excuse where I won't be here. But otherwise, yes, thank you, Barbara. I appreciate you sharing that. All right. So let's talk about some of the colors. And their watercolors. Oh, thanks for the hearts over on YouTube. I appreciate it. The watercolors have, well, there's so many different effects. You think watercolor and like there's just one set of colors, but colors have different properties. One of the properties is how dark will it get? Some colors just do not have what's called strength, tinting strength. So uh, this indigo has a heavy tinting strength, meaning it gets very dark. And the same thing is true of the black that I was talking about. This is a black inside here. And so if I add just a little bit of water to it, it has black generally has a very heavy tinting strength. So black is a good color to use for these exercises. Indigo, which can get very dark, is good for these exercises. And then I love reds, and there are differences between your reds. And this one is called Rose Madder Permanent. So, Rose Madder Permanent is actually a very dark color. And the way you know that is you take the top off, you look inside here. It's very heavily pigmented for a red. And then let me see if it is transparent or not. That's one of the things that I like to work with. For doing these monotype or single colors, I like pigments that are transparent. And all this is actually made up of three pigments. The pigment information's on the tube right here. And it is quinacridone coral, quinacridone red, and quinacridone magenta. All three of those colors are transparent. So what I find is the transparent colors for me work the best for doing monotone. Now you can use colors that are not transparent but I would recommend not using colors that are opaque, like all the way over on the opaque side of the scale. And how do I know whether they're transparent or they're opaque? Usually they'll say somewhere on the tube. So this is cerulean blue, which is an awesome color, great color. And if you look on the tube here, this happens to be by Winsor Newton. Do you see the little block right there? It's semi-opaque. You can tell because the little block has a line through it, and then there's the black on the top part there. If the whole thing was black, that would mean it was fully opaque, like a gouache, but this is semi-opaque. Hey, flower gazer, welcome in over on Whatnot. Great to see you. So this one is the cerulean blue is semi-opaque, and you can try it, but I would say it's not the best candidate for doing a mono pigment painting unless you're not worried about having a broad range of tints, right? Tints and shades. So tints are when you add white, meaning lots more water, and shades are the darker you get. And so this one, I would be like, no, that would not be my favorite choice for doing a project like this. Let me see some other ones that I have here. Now, I wanted to do a comparison for you here. Anything that says cobalt in it, anything that says cobalt is going to be somewhat opaque. It may be semi-opaque or fully opaque. So this one is Cobalt Violet. This is Winsor Newton. And let's see if it says right on it. So it says semi-transparent. So I don't know if you can see the little block right there. It's a little square with a line through it, but there's no black in there, right? So that means that it is semi-transparent. So there's transparent, semi-transparent, semi-opaque, and opaque. And so this one is a maybe yes, maybe no. Let's open it up and see what it looks like inside. Ooh, look at that. It looks fuchsia, right? Fuchsia color. Ooh, gorgeous. But it may tend toward being a little bit, the cobalts tend to be a little bit chalky. They can be a little bit chalky looking. So they're expensive because of the cobalt that's in them. But you may not get a good monotone using a cobalt. Here's another cobalt. Oh, and let me show you so this was the cobalt. This is by Michael Harding. It's called Belladonna. So the Belladonna, normally when you open it, if the color is very dark, that usually means that it's transparent. Not always, but usually it'll look black. You see how that almost looks black in there? But it's actually transparent, just with a lot of beautiful pigment in it. We're going to try the purple one, this belladonna, but I'm going to show you when we get over the table the difference between what the tinting strength is or how much color is in there. Another one I want to show you, for instance, this is called ultramarine turquoise. Ultramarine colors are transparent. Now they may also granulate a little bit, but that's okay. It's transparent and it goes from very dark to very light. This is a great color for doing monotone. Ultramarine blue, this is ultramarine turquoise, there's an ultramarine violet. So if it says ultramarine in it, it can be a really good one. And you see how it looks black? Again, it looks almost black, but that's woo, super, super tinting. But opposite of that, in terms of the transparency, this one is called cobalt teal, which you can see it's almost used up. It's one of my favorite colors. And here it is, here it's semi-opaque. You see the little block with the line through it and the black on half of it, semi-opaque. If we open this, it's not going to look black. Can you see the color there? So what that means is that this color is not as likely to give you that range of super dark to super light because right out of the tube, you can see that it's already light. It doesn't have that what looks like black in there. So I'm gonna be showing you those violets and those turquoises when we get over top of the table. Let me see, my other favorite here is, okay, the black that I like because it does granulate. Most of the blacks don't granulate, but this one in particular from Daniel Smith is called, can you see the name? Lunar Black. You see that? Lunar Black. And so Lunar Black has, it granulates so much. There's a range of 5 lunar colors from Daniel Smith, and they all granulate a lot. This is my other, oh, there's the lunar blue right there. There's a lunar violet. I'm going to show you because I have the palette right here where I keep them in it to use. And so this is the lunar black, and you're going to notice up here a bunch of granulation. Barbara said, what is quinacridone? Okay, I'll answer that in just a moment. But you've got a lot of granulation here right in the palette. So this is the black, the violet, the blue, a granulating red. Not all reds granulate, but this one does. It's very earthy. And then there's a granulating sort of earthy, light, a little bit lighter earthy color. And the lunar colors from Daniel Smith. Actually, on YouTube, I have a video where when I first got the lunar set, I was so excited, and I did a video showing opening the tubes and actually starting this palette. So you can see how they work in that video in more detail. But we're going to use the lunar black to try the technique from, what was his name? This other artist, Leo Dessin. So we're going to use the lunar black to try this technique right here for the tree, because I have a feeling with the way it granulates that it's probably going to work really well for that technique. But there's the lunar black, the lunar blue, and the lunar violet. They would all work great for that kind of technique, as long as you're okay with lots of granulation in the colors. All right, let me see what I have. Oh, here's my lunar violet. Let me move that over to the other side there. Okay, now I have right here, this is what's called a travel palette. This happens to be one by Christy Rice, and they're called a travel palette because they have a little hook on the bottom here. And so when you open it like this, and you have your pans, these are called half pans in there, you can slip your finger into that loop and hold it as you're painting. And so these are the core colors right here. So remember I said indigo is the one that I used here and that I showed you the value study for it here. Well, that is, let me see, I have a little listing here of what my colors are. So indigo is this one right here, right in that pan. So if you do have something like this, you can just challenge yourself, take one color and make a painting with all the different values just from one color that's in here. Now this orange, you see how light the orange is, and of course light the yellow is. Those two, mm, they're not going to be good necessarily. Of course, you can do a painting of one color with either one of these. However, you're not going to get the range of tints and shades out of these lighter colors, right? And this is that teal that I showed you right there. So you're just not going to get the range of colors from those as you are from the ones that look black, meaning that they have a lot of tinting strength to them. Now that reminded me of one more color. And I'm looking here to see where I might have put it, but I'm not finding it. Okay, that's all right. So I could do this project using my palette like this, or I could do it from the tubes like this. When I'm in the studio, I do like to work with the tube paint, and that's because the tube paint is just so juicy right out of the tube compared to the dried version of it in here. But in particular, the core paints, which where the heck did I put? There's my core indigo. So like the core indigo here, um, these paints in particular, the core QOR, they re-wet like a dream. So if I just spray some water on this palette, boom, those colors just come right back out. It's a special proprietary suspension that they use for their watercolor paints called Aquazol. Love them. And they re-wet like super. So I'm just as comfortable using the pans as I am the tubes with the core paints, but you'll find that a lot of the other paints brands that when you squeeze them into a half pan like this, it's going to take a little bit of work to get the pigment to resuspend back into water. And that's why I like to work with the tubes. So if you're using another brand, like for instance, this Winsor and Newton, try this, uh, activity using a tube. And so you get the juicy paint with all of that great tinting strength right out of the tube instead of doing it out of a pan. That's just my recommendation. All right. We are going to go. I'm going to answer the question. Oh, Barbara said, FYI, Tristina has over 100 educational videos. Yes, it's like right now, I think over 140, right? And I want to thank everybody who watched my, and there may be some new people here of the folks that watched my video this past week for Amazon Prime days because they were having some sales and I bought some things. So I'll be doing some videos, art supply hauls and stuff. And but I just want to thank everybody who watched that video and maybe click through on some of the links to Amazon. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. And all of the videos that I do, like this workshop, for instance, I go back after the workshop is over and I add into the comments links to all of the supplies that I showed you during the workshop so that you can easily find them. Okay. But Barbara did ask, what is a quinacridone? So let me go back to where is, oh, yes, the rose madder permanent. So this is made of a bunch of colors. I had mentioned quinacridone coral, red and magenta. So quinacridone color just is a modern pigment, a quinacridone. It's a permanent pigment, meaning it'll be around for between 50 and 100 years before it starts to fade. They're heavily, heavily tested for light fastness. And then also the quinacridones are transparent. So if you see that a paint is a quinacridone paint, it's transparent. That means it's likely going to have a great range of colors between the lightest light and the darkest dark. Also, there are a few other words that you can count on for finding out if something is transparent, and that is phthalo. It's pronounced phthalo, but it's spelled PHTHALO, and then cyanine, CAYININE, I believe. But it's people call it phthalo and for short, just like we call quinacridones quin for short. So I'd say quin rose, quin red, something like that. If you hear me referring to it like that. And so a quinacridone is and a phthalo. And let me think if there's any other, this ultramarine, you'll know that those are transparent colors. Anything that says cobalt like this, you'll know is a color that is going to be semi-transparent to opaque, okay? Because the cobalt, that's just the nature of cobalt paints. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I can think of in terms of, I think there's one more that if you see the word, you know that it's transparent. I don't remember it off the top of my head, but if I happen to, I will let you know. Let's see this one here from Michael Harding that says they call it belladonna is the color. And let me see, it says PV23. So that's a pigment violet, PR112. You can see right here, right there, it tells you what the pigments are. And there is a pigment database that you can look up, and it talks about the properties of the pigments, whether there's any toxicity concerns with the pigments. Because, for instance, there are not the cobalt colors. What are they? Like the yellow. There are other colors that do have cadmium in them, or other elements, and they can be toxic. So it is sometimes good to look up your pigments and find out if you have what some people consider a non-toxic studio. So they only want to have things in their studio that are non-toxic. Then you want to know and understand the pigments that are in your art supplies. And so knowing these, like the PB29 on the end here, knowing those pigments, there is a database, and I will link it in the description of the video, where you can go and look up what exactly are those pigments made up of. And then, so this belladonna is not just one pigment. This is made of a combination of 3 pigments. So you would want to look up each one of those pigments and see what the properties of them are. And of course, even though they tell you what the pigments are on the tube, the combination of the colors, of course, is proprietary to each company in order to, use different volumes of those paints in order to get the colors that they're producing. And also, you can have a single pigment, like for instance, PR 101, which is a red. The P stands for pigment, and then you have R for red, you have W for white, you have B for blue, G for green, so and on that way. And so what was I going to tell you about that? The PR 101, for instance, you can have PR 101 that looks different between one company and another company. And the difference is sometimes they heat the colors, or they put them through a chemical process, or they expose them to ultraviolet radiation, the like sun, and they get variations of the pigments. So it's not always cut and dry that a particular pigment number looks a particular way all the time. It depends on the manufacturer and what they've done to those pigments. So that can change. You've got regular umber and burnt umber. You have regular raw sienna, or you have raw sienna and then burnt sienna, for instance. So, the heating of those elements can create it's the same base element, but one is raw and the other one is burnt or cooked. So, isn't that fascinating? I think it's so fascinating. It could be the same pigment number, but one is treated in a different way than the other. So, all of these manufacturers have their own ways that they do that. Um, okay, hey, S. Diedrich just joined over on Whatnot. Welcome in, and Serious Art Treasury, welcome in. Thanks for joining. Hey, hey, yes, yes. Oh, all right. We are at the point where we're going to go over top of the table, and I'm going to swatch some of these paints for you so we can see those differences. And then I have a whole pile of reference photographs over here. And so we're going to go to town with the single. S. Diedrich, thank you very much. You're so sweet. She said I look nice today. Ah, okay, so let's go over the table. If you need my information for my Instagram or my Facebook and my website right there. Hey, and if you want to find out about special events and things that are happening coming up, as well as the upcoming classes, sign up for my newsletter on my website. If you go to my website, deetsart.com, and then you go to the tab that says newsletter, you can sign up there. And then also, if what's the other thing? Oh, if you're looking for art supplies and it's a random day, you can always go to my website, and I have different suggestions within my website on the page that says supply links. So you can always go there and then click one of the links and be taken over and purchase the art supplies. I like this watercolor paper because it's just a good general all around paper for the studio. It is not 100% cotton. So if you really want to work out these beautiful professional grade paints, then you're going to want to use 100% cotton paper. So for instance, this is from Winsor and Newton, and it's 100% cotton. It's a 5x7 pad of 100% cotton paper. Beautiful paper. And the reason is because of the way that the paints will move around on the cotton paper. But if you're just playing or you're um, just wanting to work out some ideas, this XL paper, and I sell the stuff that I make on the XL paper as well. Why not? So that's what we're going to start with tonight. And that's what I had done this um, lighthouse with. And actually, the lighthouse was a picture that my son in law took last week. He was in Copenhagen for work. And so he took this picture of the sunset with the lighthouse. Isn't that beautiful? Oh, it just I was like, okay, I'm printing that. I'm gonna do some painting with that because I think there's so much drama in it. You have the lightest light here, and then you have the darkest dark. There's just a lot of drama there. So good on him. A good composition, right? In setting up his picture. And then this is another one that he took, which I thought was just amazing, where he got to go visit a castle. And wow, beautiful. I like this one because here's your center of focus, but you've got a lot of nice darks over here on the sides, which I think are really cool. So bravo, good job, Johnny. So let's take this one off of here and do some experimenting with, we're gonna start out, we're gonna leave this. We're not gonna do that one first. We're going to do that one next, okay? We're going to start out with one of these. So what I like to do is I like to go to Pixabay and Unsplash on the computer and get pictures. And then you can see here, it's just a black and white photo. And I like that because then you can see your lights and your darks, right? And then here are some flowers. So if we're going to work with colors, I thought some roses would be nice. And then these are some more roses. So especially this purple, I thought maybe with the belladonna, we could whip out a rose. Now, I am not a photorealist painter, meaning I'm not going to paint a rose that's going to look exactly like that. The way I do art is I like to be more free and expressive with my art, more like this, which is more expressive and not literal. Um, and there are a lot of people out on the internet that can show you how to paint more realistically, but that's not me. That's I used to be a computer systems analyst, which is very technical, and so when I paint, I want to get away from precision because that's what I always had to do during my career. And I want to get like as far away from that as possible when I'm doing art. Okay, let's grab a great, I know, just a good all-around brush. This is my Princeton long round, meaning the top is long like that, velvet touch. And I love the feel of the handle. Ugh, so good. And then this little container is from Faber-Castell. It's my travel container. I actually just ordered another one during the Amazon day Prime deal days because they crunch flat and then go in your travel bag super easy. Plus, they don't make a lot of noise. See, if I go like this, there's almost no noise. Where when I'm working on these, you hear the tink. Now you might like the tinkle of that, but when I'm on video, I find that I like it to be quieter. So I like using the um, this one from Faber-Castell, and it'll be linked in the description of the video. All right, let's look at some of those colors that I was talking about, the difference between how you can get the various values out of them. So we are going to start with these. Let me grab one of these. So I'm going to start with the cobalt violet here. And I'm going to put just a little bit of the cobalt violet in there. Eee! Okay. It's a brand new tube, and I don't know if you can see it in there, but we got some separation of the binder, and that's not good. So I am looking for my toothpicks. Yes, here they are. So if you do get binder separation, that's normally near the beginning. Going to try to do a paint along. Ah, nice, on a different reference. That's awesome. Thanks for letting us know, Mark. So actually, I think I'm going to use this is a palette knife, and I'm going to pick some of that up, that clear binder. I'm going to pick some of that up. And what you want to do is, if you notice that there's excess binder on the top of your tube because it's a new tube, it's helpful to take that binder and mix it back in before you squeeze the paint out. So I'm just going to use a toothpick, and I'm going to mix that in the tube. There we go. So that I can get that binder mixed in there. Yay. Well done. All right, now there's tons of paint on there. So I don't even have to pull any more paint out of the tube. I can just take my brush here and pull it right off of there. Nice. All right, so now I've got my color. So what you're going to notice is that even right out of the tube, I mentioned earlier, the color is light. One of the reasons for the separation is that this is a cobalt color, as I had mentioned before, and cobalt is heavy. So it um, separates out of the binder for one thing. And then, but you can see how light the color is here, right? Straight out of the tube. It doesn't look dark. So when we go to do our value clay, so that's basically right out of the tube. Then I'm going to add some water to my brush. And then I'm going to add some more water to my brush. Wow, there's a lot of binder on there because it's the beginning of the tube. So I'm trying to get myself some lighter colors by adding more water. So this is how we make our value scale. We just keep adding more water. Come on, more water. And you'll notice also that this paint does not have a lot of what is called tinting strength. So if I take a paper towel and I wipe across here while it's still wet, it leaves a little bit of color on there, but almost like hardly anything. So let me pull this up and show you what I mean by the tinting strength. You see how the paper looks there after I wiped it off? Not much, not much. And that's because the cobalt is, the particles are thick. And so they're sitting on top instead of being so tiny that they soak down into the paper. All right, let's get a little bit more here so that I can, there's not a lot of separation in the values here. It's really hard to get a big value scale. So there we go. There's not a lot of difference between the darkest dark and the lightest light here to work with. So I'm just gonna put some water in here. Now I'm gonna show you the belladonna, which is made with, well, when you look at it, it's black. So out of the tube, when it's in the tube, which tells me, ooh, that's probably a good transparent color. Now, yellows can be transparent colors and they don't look black in the tube, but they're a little different. But you see how this one right here looks black in the tube. So let's just put a little bit of that in there. There's a bunch of see, these are beginning tubes, so there's a lot of binder that's in there. Let's see if I can mix that binder in there with the color. So this color is quite dark. It looks, if you look there, it looks almost black, right? Yikes. Okay, so let's grab, so this was the cobalt violet. It comes out light and has not very much range. And then let's put this one next to it. which is the belladonna. So very thick and out of the tube, it looks almost black. It does look black actually to me right here. I'll bring this up to you, closer to you when I've got some more on there. So I just added a little bit of water to the brush. All right. Dark, but we're beginning to see some of the dark purple color there. Added some more water. So a little more of the purple is starting to show up. A little bit more water. Okay, now it's actually looking purple. A little bit more water. Now we're getting a lighter version. And more water. Now I'm going to add some water to this one. Woo! Even more water. The nice thing about the staining colors like this, or the colors that are very dense, is that you can use a little bit of paint and it goes a long way. But sometimes you want the specialty colors like this cobalt violet. If you want to do something that's like a fuchsia, or you're looking for a particular color within a flower, you may want to use that. But I really like these transparent colors that just they go on and on and on. I mean, there's so much pigment in my brush, I'm having a hard time making it lighter. Just keep going. Now, I'm going to try to pull some of that color off and see. So there's more of a stain on this one than there was on this one. Let me bring it up closely so you can see right there. So you can see how dark that is. Black at the top, and then you can see the range of colors there. And then this one at the bottom, there's still a lot of color left on the paper, even when I wiped the paper clean, where here there was hardly any color left on the paper. So that's its tinting strength or its staining strength. Actually, some manufacturers actually put on their tube whether it's a staining, what we call a staining color or a non-staining color. I'm just looking here to see if this one says it. Let's look at this one and see if it says if it stains or not. No, it's not staying on it, but some of them do say whether they're a staining color or non-staining color. All right, now over here, I got a tiny bit of purple. So I'm gonna take, this is my favorite brush for fixing little mistakes. And that is the Princeton Velvet Touch, but it doesn't have that velvety handle, but it is because it's made for a specific purpose. So it has a pretty stiff end to it here. This is the 3/8 inch blender. So if I take this with a little bit of water, you have to have good paper. If you have cheap paper or paper that's too light, this won't work. It'll tear the paper up. But I'm able to lift that color out using that blender brush. So to me, this is a must have if you don't already. And I'll have it linked in the description of the video. Wow, there's so much variation here. It's awesome. All right, let's do the turquoise and the teal so you can see the same thing. This is a cobalt teal. So let's put some of the cobalt. You can see the color in the tube. So you're going to go, okay, we don't know how far that's going to go. There's a little bit of the cobalt. One of my favorite colors though, I use it a lot. So even though it doesn't work as well for the type of project that we're doing right now, which is the monotone, and you want to have a wide range of dark to light. But as a color itself, yeah, baby, I use it a lot, a lot. Okay, let's, you know what? I have got quite a lot of purple in here. And in my studio, because the sink is all the way on the other side of the house. So I don't have a sink in my studio because it's a converted bedroom. All right. So I keep a yogurt container in here. And then when I need to change my water, I can just do that. And I keep a bottle of water. And that way I do not have to get up. I can just change my water right here. Yay. Let's fill that back up. All right. Nice. Now I can just set this down here. Fantastic. Ready for more water. Here we go. Let's see what we can get out of this cobalt teal. So if I take it straight from like thick, thick, thick color, let me put that here. It's a gorgeous color, but it's not dark. Do you see what the tone is right out of the tube? The color is not dark. It's a beautiful cobalt, but we're not going to get the range of values out of that for doing monotone painting. So I just added some water. Absolutely stunning. I mean, to me, this makes amazing oceans and skies. I'm dipping my brush in water each time so that I can get it a little bit less, a little bit less, a little bit less, a little less pigment each time. Okay, I'm just about at the very close to the end here. I just put lots of water in there. So let's use a little paper towel. And this is the last one, and do some pickup. And yeah, most of the color came out. So here we go. So you can see there's how much of a range of value is there? Not very much, right? In that. And you can see here, there's not really much in the way, there's a little bit of staining in the paper. That's because this is an excellent professional quality paint, but it's not nearly as much staining as that purple one did. So let's now do the ultramarine turquoise. So this is also a turquoise color, but like I showed you earlier, it looks black in the tube. So let's put a little bit of that out here. There we go. I just did a video on a bunch of the Daniel Smith colors that I just received this past week. And as we say, it's in the can, but it's not edited yet. I mean, it's created, but I haven't quite finished the video. Well, I haven't started the video editing yet, so that'll be up on my YouTube channel sometime this week. Okay, right out of the tube, it looks almost black, right? So let's take it really thick and put it here, very thick. Yeah, almost black. You can see a little bit of the blue in it, but very dark. Excellent. That makes me so happy because then I know that I've got it's going to have a big, plus it's transparent. So I know I'm going to have a big range of colors. Dip in the water, dip in the water, dip in the water. Eee, some of them, there's not much difference there. Dip in the water. So it's more water, more water, more water. Keep going. Are you trying this, Mark V, with your paint that you're planning to use? I'm wondering. It keeps going, y'all. It just keeps going. I'm having a hard time getting it to be really barely there. All right, let me take all the water out of my brush and just pick up just the teeniest tiny bit from the edge. Maybe that way I can get it. Yes, okay, that's where I can get it to be like barely there. It just keeps going, going and going and going. So again, transparent color. It says ultramarine there, ultramarine turquoise. And so, wow, the range is just a very strong color and you can get quite a range out of it. So it's perfect for doing monotype paintings with. So these two, very good for doing the monotypes with because they're both very transparent. But I wanted to show you the difference between the transparent version and a version that's more opaque because it has cobalt in it. Okay, so now I think and if it says cadmium in it, oftentimes cadmium does the same thing like these light ones do here. They're beautiful colors. They just, um, they're not going to be ideal for doing your monotone paintings. So what I'm wondering, Mark V, is what color or colors you have to do this process with. Huh? What colors do you have? All right, let's take this. I want to use this one for the whale image that I showed you earlier. And I want to use this one for the rose that I showed you earlier. And then, um, or maybe this one for the rose. This is the rose madder. Oh my goodness graciousness. I hate when this happens when you have a new tube. Can you see that? Can you see how it's literally jumping out of the tube? I hate when that happens, but because then like too much comes out at one time. But in this case, it's too much of a good thing, right? And I'm okay with that. So can you see the color out of there? Ultramarine, black, and Prussian blue. Ooh, perfect, perfect, Mark. Okay, so you can see the color out of it, right? But this is made up of all quinacridones. So even though it looks like it may be a dense color, it's actually an excellent color for doing this type of thing because the color itself, it's transparent and it's very bold. So there's a lot of pigment in it. So it's not one that looks black like this one does, right? Where you're like, what the heck color is that? I know it's the purple, but what? What? It's crazy. So let's add just a little bit of water. There's still, oh, there's still so much pigment in there. And that now this is a staining color, so it will make quite a stain on the paper. And it doesn't have the same staying power as the ones that are dark when they come out of the tube, but it has a decent range. Decent. Let me get most of it off of there and just do like a barely there. Blush, blush pink. Nice. So there's a decent range out of that one, but I'd say it's in between the cobalt, and these other ones that look black out of the tube. I hadn't tried it yet, so except for my little video that I did. So I hadn't tried this process with it. So interesting to see. All right, now let me show you the lunar black, which I want to do for doing one of those trees, right? So even though Mark V says that he has black, the question is, what kind of black do you have, darling? Because this is a granulating black specifically. Oh, look at that. Look at that. It's like jumping right out of the tube. Oh my gosh. That's what's already in here is lunar black, but because it's my favorite black, there are many different. Oh, you have lamp black. Okay. Well, it depends on the brand because sometimes lamp black you can find is gritty as well, and that's fabulous. I mean, I happen to like granulating colors, and I have a lot of them, and I'm buying more. Actually, I'm having a set sent from Canada right now. Another artist in Canada is sending me something that I bought from her, which is a container that has a whole bunch of granulating colors in it. But granulating is where the colors separate out. And sometimes with lamp black, you can also get the color to separate out. If you have a Mars black, usually not. What other black is there? There's one other black that's out there that's very common. I forget what the name of it is, but there are several versions of black out there. All right, let's take some of this black, but this is the granulating black, lunar black. And I just like it because when you add lots of water, you're going to get a bunch of granulation. There we go. Nice and dark. Let's see. I just put a lot of water on there. Let's add some more water. And this is such a powerful black. I am what I like about it is the way that it spreads, because it's granulating. So oftentimes the granulating colors, they creep a lot. They will rush toward the water. There we go. Yep, lots of lots of good value there. But what I want to show you is the way that it granulates, the way that it separates into little dots and particles. So you can really see it right in here where there's a lot more pigment. And I started adding the water. You can see the fallout, right, of the pigment. Now, let me go ahead and show you this is the indigo, because I love doing monotones with indigo. Because especially if you're doing something that's landscapey where you've got sky or ocean or something like that, the indigo is great because the range of color that you get is fantastic. Actually, I need some fresh. Let's hope it doesn't jump out of here like crazy. No, good. Okay, it's being decent. Y'all use your paint. Don't be afraid to put a bunch of paint in there. Um, so don't be timid with your paint. It's made to, explore with. Oh my gosh, that's like I said, that's why I love fresh. So here is the fresh indigo, and it looks, oh my gosh, it looks almost black except for the edges of it, right? And then, and Prussian blue that Mark V mentioned, Prussian blue, wow, it's a deep, deep blue similar to indigo. I'd say it's slightly lighter than indigo, but there is so much staining in this paint. Wow. Ooh, let's add a little more water in there. It just keeps going, 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 going. There we go. Now, another way to get a light color with something like indigo is with a lot of water in it. I may say, oh, that's not, as light as I need it. So you can put your color down, see how it looks almost gray, and then you can pick some of it back up like this, because this indigo has a nice staining power. So can you see how there's just the lightest blush of kind of a gray blue there? So it's excellent for doing skies and clouds and things with the indigo. Another one, so I mentioned Prussian blue, like Mark V has. You can get something similar out of it, a huge range of values out of Prussian blue. I'm trying to think if I even have any Prussian. I do have Prussian blue right here. No, I don't. I have Payne's gray. Payne's gray is another color that you can often use for this. Let's see if we can rehydrate this Payne's gray or not. I find Prussian blue and Payne's gray are similar, but Prussian blue is just that little bit more blue. All right. You see how this was perfectly dry, and now let's see how much paint oh yeah. So this is Payne's gray. This is why I love the core paints, because they reactivate so well. Okay. But you're not getting quite the range because it's not juicy, but it's still lots of range in this. It's more gray than your indigo is, right? But it has a great range as well. And that's called Payne's gray. A lot of people like to use Payne's gray for shadows um, instead of black, because it's a color. It has like a light blue tint to it. Fabulous. And that gives you beautiful sort of skies too. Let me take some of it. It's on my brush here, right? With just a tiny bit of water. I mean, just a tiny bit of pigment and some water. And when it's it's giving me color, but it's a little more gray than this one is over here. Can you see that? It's blush, but it's a blush gray, and this is a blush blue with the indigo. You have the Cotman. Okay, excellent. Cotman is the what they would call the student grade of the Winsor and Newton. So where was my other Windsor and Newton? over here. So this cobalt violet, that's a Winsor and Newton. Um, this is the Winsor and Newton. It says professional on it, but the Cotman that Mark V mentioned that he has is the student grade, um, the more economical version of the paint. And if you stick with the colors like you're talking about, Mark V, like the Prussian blue and the blacks and stuff, you're fine with Cotman. I would say any of the specialty colors. I haven't been satisfied with the pigment load of the Cotman with some of the more specialty colors. So then you might want to upgrade to a professional grade for that. Okay, so that kind of gives you an idea of how the paints pull down or to how you can do a value study with them. Oh my gosh, I am like, this is the sheet for me. Okay. I just love these colors. Oh my gosh, they make me so happy. So happy. Okay, I'm just going to set these aside. And now let's look at doing something. Let's start with maybe a rose. And what colors do I have out here? I have the purple out. Oh my gosh, the purple is so dark. It's so dark. So let's just do a very loose purple rose, right? This was the belladonna. And you can see it's so dark, so dark. Let me move some of these out of the way here so I can have, I take my photographs that I pull off of the internet from the royalty free sites, and um, on my printer, I'm able to tell my printer from my computer, hey, give me um, 5x7s. And so then two 5x7s fit on one piece of 8.5 by 11 paper. And that makes them perfect for your reference photos, because then see how I could fold that in half and just work with this one. Okay, so let's work with this one. And I liked this picture because of the drama with the darks, right? So I think you can still see that when I put it right there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use a lot of water. Let me just split this paper in half because I don't need to fill the whole paper with the rose, right? So that is 12. Let's say this is 6 here and 6 here. I just want to give myself an idea of where half of it is so that I'm not using up the whole paper for one rose. Okay, so now we're going to try to keep the rose over here. And what I want to do is I'm using lots of water. Maybe you can see the water better that way. And I just want to, with the very edge of my brush, I just want to grab just a little bit of the purple, not very much, just to blush. I want to keep it super light. So I'm just going to get a feel for the petals here. Just super light, super light. You see here where there's lots of water? I'm just doing it very light. I want to get, I will build up. That's what you do with watercolor is you start with the light and then you build up. Now, if I wanted it even lighter, I could just use a paper towel and pick up some of the color. And so that is what I would call blush. Do you see the blush of purple? If you leave the more concentrated water there, it'll dry darker. But oftentimes I will pull a little bit of that off. So I'm barely using this purple. I'm really taking advantage of the water and using a lot of the water here and just getting the blush. And I'm just looking at the rose. I'm going to bring it up closer. So if you want to snap a picture of it, you can right there. But this was off of Pixabay. And you can just type in rose or purple rose and you'll find it. And then there's another little, so I'm just power of observation right now, but I'm not trying to make it perfect because that's not the kind of painter that I am. I'm not a realist, as I mentioned earlier. I'm okay. I'm okay with it not being perfect. I'm just sort of following along with what I'm seeing here and building the rows up. I'm leaving the middle blank because the middle is actually going to have a very dark, the tone of the middle is much darker, right? What I'm building right now is going to be the lighter areas here. And let me pick some of that up because I don't want it to be so dark. I want the blush to start with. I'm interested in the folks who are watching, how many of you have used that technique where you put down the color and then you lift a little bit in order to keep the color really light. You see, there's purple there, but there's barely any purple there. Okay, the next one is here. It comes around this way. And then it comes like this. This is going to be the light areas. So let's lift this up. Okay. Good, good, good. And we're just going to softly build these up. Now there's one right here. It just comes along like this and comes down. And what I'm getting right now is the little areas that turn. So if you look here, do you see the little area right here? That it's the turning of the petal. Okay. So let's get some of that color out of there. There we go. Super light, super light. Let's see, where am I? And then there's another one that like comes up and out here. If there are gaps, it's because I'm going to be putting darker colors in there and where the gaps are. And then there's another one here. There we go. Just do some undulating. Leave yourself a little room. So these are just the tops of it. We'll develop super light purple. I'm going to do this big one right here. So this one comes from here up and over and down. There we go. And it's the lightest right up here. Oh, see, I grabbed a little more purple. So this is a little more purpley. It's a little darker. Wait, more water, more water. It's so dark. This color is just so strong. There we go. And then, so I need more water, more water. What else do we have? We have another one back behind here, sort of a half of one like that. And pull it up. And then I need to work on just a few more over here. So barely, can you see the color there? I don't know if you can. There's barely any, but if you have a strong color like this, it will it will definitely um, stain the paper. And that's how I can lift this color out. And yet, right? Didn't I just lift that off? But look at all the color that it leaves. So this belladonna from Michael Harding is definitely a nice staining color. All right. There's still just a tiny bit of purple in there. Well, I need another one right here. I find that it takes years of taking classes and observing in order to get like, this is what it looks like. It's not as easy as you think to observe. It really takes practice, 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 practice. Okay, there's another one that comes up and over here like this. And we're gonna lift some of that. And then we have one big one over here. So it is right here coming into there, but it also comes around here and out here. This is a big one. There's one big one there. See, if I left that on there, do you see all the pigment that's there? So I've got to keep, if I want the lightest lights, I have to barely put the color down and then do that. Okay, that's good enough. Good enough. And now let's build some darker colors. So now I'm going to bring in a little bit more of the purple. It's still light. You can see it right there, right? It's still light, but it's not quite that blush. So I'm going to begin to put some of the darker in here because the center of the rose has that. Now I'm not going to worry about filling all the areas. One of the nice things I think about being a painter is that we don't have to do exactly what we see. We can interpret what's there. And I like to see art with things like this that leave a little bit of white space, a little bit of the white of the background. So don't be afraid to leave a little bit of the white of the background. Okay, back here we've got some color off of the edge of this. Wow, that second color is so dark and I've barely used any of it. Woo! Good quality paint. What can I tell you, right? So then we've got this one sort of comes down this way. So you're just building in the shadow, but this isn't even the darkest. This is just the next to the darkest. You can go darker, darker, darker. Let's go down inside here with the purple. Back and forth, back and forth. This is what I call the push and pull of watercolor. You're pushing the colors on and then you're pulling the colors back off. And then you'll end up needing a new paper towel as you do it. Okay, want some darker color in here, a little bit of darker in here, just leaving the light colors there. Don't worry if it's not perfect. We're not trying to be perfect. I'm more of an impressionist. I'm trying to give the impression of what's there. Okay, build up some of the dark here. We're going to go in and intensify some of that dark in just a minute. So I'm just getting what I would call the mid-tone. If you've watched my workshops before, you know I usually um, work from, well, especially with watercolor, you tend to work from light to dark. So I will use a light color and then a mid-tone color and then a dark color. So let's lift, lift. I don't want too much there, just a little bit of variation. I'm going to bring this up for you in just a moment, but you can begin to see some of the variations there. So you think that your watercolor paint, these finer paints, you think that they're expensive, but actually they're not, because they go such a long way if you're using good quality like this. The amount of pigment that's in here is just outrageous. So much, so much. All right, outside of this one right here comes down. And we've got a little bit in here and a little, I'm just hurrying it up a little bit so we can get to the next layer. There we go. So let me bring that up. So that's what I would call my mid-tone. And then let's put in a little bit of the dark. So we're going to look at the dark here and dark over here and in here. And oftentimes your petals aren't really defined until you go in with your darker color. I'm not going to use the fully dark color because otherwise that would be way too dark and intense. But you might want to do that at one point. If you really have a lot of blackness there, you may want to come in with a super dark, super black. I'm just going to lift it again. Now I've got a third tone in here of darkness. This middle area right here. The nice thing with watercolor is the more layers you put on, the more it's going to intensify. And you know, Mark V, you can do this exact same thing, but with your blues or even black. You could do a rose with black and just get your grays. You could take any rose photograph and um, turn it into a black and white. And then that's a good way to figure out where your darks and your lights are um, in your composition. Let's put a little bit more here and a little bit more down in here. Let's lift. You have to be careful when you're on your on here. You don't want your wet to go down in there again. Now I've got a little bit more down in here of the darkness. Just to connect up with this. And a little more darkness down in here. Now, if I want it to feather a little bit, I'm adding a little bit more water in there. And then that will give me a feathered effect. So can you see how the pigment is sort of feathering there in the water? So you can start with a line of dark and then add a little bit of water and encourage it so that as it dries, it'll kind of bloom and give you a really interesting bloom there. Okay, so we're not going to do the whole rose because I don't want to take the time to do that. We're going to move on to the fish so we can get into some of the blues. All right. So um, that was the rose. Let me get one of the fish. So then we're going to look at the black. Or no, we're going to do the blue and we'll use the black for the tree. Okay. So let me fold this in half. And I like this fish coming up out of the water because we have a lot of whites here right next to the fish. So that one's going to go right there. I hope you can see that. Yes, you can see the fish. Okay, so I'm actually going to flip my paper so it's closer to the fish. That way you can see it more clearly. I'm going to move this purple aside. Now I have the black inside here, right? So I'm going to start with just a little bit of water. You see how it goes gray, like dark, so fast? Wow. Whew. Okay, so I'm going to start with, oh, we're not doing black on this one. What am I doing? We're doing blue on this one. Let me get the blue. Sorry about that. So this was the Prussian blue. These are kind of the colors you can see there. So let's grab a little bit of, what I want to do is I want to sort of define the fish, but I want the color to be kind of light. So this is what is it? A whale, a beautiful whale. So we've got the whale comes like this and down and into the water. And then there's wave the water along here, right? I'm not covering all of it because there's going to be some white in there from the waves, or some lighter colors. Okay. So that's one edge. Like I said, I'm barely using any color on my brush. And this is the um, Core Indigo is the one that I'm using right now. So that was there, and it kind of comes around the snout, sort of comes around like this. And then it comes here. and then down, down sort of like that, right? And then right from here, we've got the fin coming out, and then the fin. So I like to use a light color and sort of define what it is that I'm drawing here. Because if you want to change it, like I'm looking and going, no, 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 that doesn't go like that. I can use my scrubber brush that I showed you earlier, and I can scrub out some of that color, right? What if it's very light and it's fresh? There we go. I didn't get it all, but I got most of it. If you try to do this on a paper that's like really cheap paper, it will just tear your paper up. It's horrible. But this one, it works well. On cotton papers, it really works well. Okay. I barely want any blue in there. The angle that I went was a little bit, it was a little too high. I needed to bring it down. So that's why you want to just do this. So there is our whale. And we're going to have some gnarly bits up at the top. I'm going to bring it closer so you can see the little gnarly bits right here. And there's some gnarly bits on here. So let's just add some of those gnarly bits along here. And now with the whale, we need some light color in there like this. And then we're going to get darker. Light color, light color. We'll start with the light. And then we'll get darker. Let me hold this up. I'm not sure if I held it there long enough if you wanted to take a picture of it, but it is from Pixabay, and you can just type in whale or whale splashing in water and you should find it. All right. And then, and I am just, like I said, I am just barely using the color. So it comes along. What I'm laying in right now is sort of the lighter colors. And then I'm going to go around and add more of the dark, right? So I'm laying in the areas where I want light color. And then I'm going to intensify. It's a little bit, we've got some of the dark up here. The nice thing about this being black and white is there is some white. So I'm going to want to preserve some areas. Well, this one actually, the whole fin is kind of gray, as well as over here, it's sort of gray. So I start my first layer with as light as I can get it. It's kind of as light as I can get it because this is such a strong color. Such a strong color. Come on. It can be a real challenge just to get it to be light. All right. Now the back side of the fish. So here, all the way here is darker. Do you see that? And right along here. So I'm going to do another layer. Oh, and also we have a shadow here. So I'm just going to go in with a little bit more and just let it create sort of a darker color because it's another layer. Even if I pick it up, you can start to see a little bit dark. See how it's a little darker there? Okay. Let's bring just a little bit more in here. And it's extra dark here. And with a little bit more water, I want it to sort of spread just a little bit. It's very dark. Oh, there's some some more little lumps over here. This must be, I think this is called a humpback whale, right? So let's get a little bit more darkness. And then it does this. All right. It's a little bit more up here. So I'm just observing the picture and trying to pick out the darkest areas and begin to darken the darkest areas. So it's darker here. So the real trick is our water control and how much paint it's putting off, right? So we're building it up. There we go. Built it up. And we keep going, keep going. Now I want to do a little bit more with the water here because the water is definitely going to be darker. So what I put there so far is going to be the white and the lighter. I'm going to leave certain areas of the white, but I want to begin to darken the water a little bit more. Okay. Now there is a bunch of foam right around the fish here. So one way that you can address foam is you can use masking fluid. So I don't know if y'all have ever heard of masking fluid before or not, but masking fluid is something that you can put on your paper and it will protect that area of paper from getting paint on it. Now I'm just looking to see if my masking fluid is out here. This is a masking fluid pen, but it feels like it's dry. I don't know. Let's give it a shot and see if I can get any of it out of here or not. Yeah, it's dry. Oh, no, I'm starting to get some out. Okay, good. So I put masking fluid. This is a just you can use it as a fluid paint pen, but I love to put masking fluid in it. And it has a needle in the lid, so it helps to the needle goes back in. Realize some people may have trouble because of their eyes, but the needle goes back in and keeps the needle open. So this is masking fluid, this little bit of blue right here. I'm actually going to pick it up right here. And so we're going to add a little bit of masking fluid in here, and that's going to protect the paper from the colors that I put down. So we've got some spray going on up here. Some people like to put masking fluid on with a brush, and I do that too. I do it with a brush. And you can even do it with a paintbrush if you want to get a spray out of it. But I just want to give you an example, kind of show you how this works. And I happen to have my pen here, and my brushes and stuff are with for my masking fluid are in a box in the other room there. So we've got water coming out here. We've got another spray right here. So anywhere that I want to preserve the white of the paper is where I'm going to put masking fluid. Do this. And I love this this pen for putting on masking fluid that's not quite as precise as maybe using a brush. And I like that. I like it being more organic. I'm even going to put a little bit up here. Come on, you can do it. Ah, not that much. Now, if you put too much masking fluid on and you go, dang it, okay, that's not what I wanted to do there. I wanted to I didn't want that big blob there. You just wait until it's dry. Now, if it's a big blob like that, you can use just the corner of your paper towel and pick up the excess. I'm going to show you. Can you see that? It just squeezed it right up into the paper towel. It wicked it in. And now that's okay right there. I'm just going to put a little bit, some dots. So what's going to happen is it's going to look like there's spray coming off of there. Let me get a little bit more here. Like that. So I'm going to show you So the blue is just the masking fluid. It's a latex masking fluid. This I'm using the one from Pebeo, which is called drawing gum. And let's put the lid back on there. The pen goes in there. These are awesome. You can even put your fluid acrylics or inks in here too. And so they're just very versatile. I'm just going to put that away. And there's the little ones here that are, I don't want to wait forever, like till tomorrow before they dry. So I'm going to pick up the excess that I got on there so that it'll dry faster. Because when you use a thin coat of the masking fluid, it dries pretty quickly. That's why a lot of people like to use the brush instead of the masking pen I was just showing you. Because the masking pen tends to lay down a little bit more. And I want it to dry shortly since we're working on it right now. Okay, extra, extra, extra. Get up the extra. I'm just touching it with the edge of the paper towel and it's soaking up the extra. There we go. Do you have any masking fluid, Mark V? I'm not sure if you've ever tried masking fluid with watercolor or not. Okay. I just want these to dry. Now, I prefer not to use heat with to try to get these to dry. And the reason is because normally it dries pretty quickly. Yeah, not yet. Okay. And it dries pretty quickly. And what I find is masking fluid has latex in it, and latex is a rubber, right? So if you heat the rubber, what happens is, what I've found is that the rubber can embed itself in the paper and then it does not want to come back up. And the idea is you put the masking fluid down, you paint over top of it. When the paint is dry, then you roll the masking fluid off and it leaves the white of the paper, which is fabulous. But not if when you go to roll it off, it doesn't come off because you've heated it and now it's attached to the paper. You don't want that. So I am trying to get these soaked up so that it will dry faster. Usually when I'm doing a painting and I want to use the masking fluid, I usually will put the masking fluid on a couple hours beforehand. So I know that it's fully dry before I work with it. But we're doing it on the fly. So I'm not going to worry. We're just having fun. Okay. One more, it looks like right here. So I just keep turning this to get little corners so that I can pick up the excess because you don't need a lot. There we go. But you can get an idea. All those areas where I put the blue masking fluid are now going to be white when we're finished with the whole process, which is awesome. All right, new paper towel time. All right, so the here is where I put that little bit of masking fluid to start, or some came off, and now it's dry, and I'm literally just rolling it right off. Can you see that? I think it was not quite dry yet because it's not all coming off, but there's something called a rubber cement eraser, and that's usually what I use to lift it off with. And see, I don't have my rubber cement eraser here either because it's in the other room as well. Eh, yeah, that's not quite dry. All right, but let's work around it to get, we're gonna start darkening, more darkening, more darkening. And then interesting thing is, a lot of times you're gonna notice when you look at a picture like this, that it's dark right along the edge, right there, just along the edge. So I'm going to take this in a rather dark formation, dark amount. And then I'm just going to pop it like right here onto the ends. Bring it in here. It looks almost black. You're going to notice. So we've got some dark here and some dark underneath and on top of here. Okay, so there you go. Can you see how dark, dark, dark? And I'm going to work on this area over here so I can just let that marinate. Now I'm going to come in and I'm going to add some more of the dark blue to the water here, especially this area right here where we have a reflection. Because we want that reflection to really show up. All right. And then I'm going to take a medium blue right here. And I'm going to do a little bit more of the water. Not too much. There are people, other artists that I've seen, they can render that water so it looks just like water. I am not that artist. And if you want to be that artist, there are some amazing artists out on YouTube that can teach you how to do that. But like I said, I'm more of an impressionist, so I'm getting the idea, but I'm not necessarily, I'm not going for photorealism because I feel like you can just get a photo. But I know the artists that do what looks like photorealism, they are amazing. I don't want to take anything away from them. They are truly amazing. It's just, it's not my style, that's all. Okay. So this is going to give us some darker right there reflection. And then, so it does take a little bit of patience when you're doing a painting like this to really take advantage of the variation in the colors. Okay, I'm going to go for more darkness up here with the little bumps that he has on the outside of his mouth, little mouth. And then I'm going to do it again. I'm going to intensify this darkness again. There we go. Beginning to get some definition there. We're going to put those lines on toward the end. There are some lines on the fish, and there's going to be more darkness in here. There we go. And there's a little bit of darkness in here and a little bit of lightness. But then, of course, right underneath right underneath the fin, there's going to be some darkness. Okay, we're getting there. We're getting there. Now, if I were doing this thoughtfully ahead of time, there is splash all over here. You see that? And splash all over here. So I would have put more of the masking fluid right here at the water line so that I would be able to roll it off and you'd see the splash right there next to the um, right next to the whale. But I decided to do it after the fact. Crazy me, right? Okay. And then there are some little lines that you can see on the fish. The body of the fish is kind of ribbed, right? So, well, before I do that, I'm just going to go a little bit more up in here with the fin because there is some more darkness in the fin there. I love building up darkness in something like this because the way that the paint dries and the layering of it is just so fun, and it you can see the layers as it dries. You can see those multiple layers, and I love that. Okay, there's a little bit, we need a little bit more blue in this area right here. So I'm intensifying that just a little bit. Can you see that? Let me bring it over at my water bottle. My water's here. I better drink some water, right? Mm, okay, okay. So this is actually sort of light right in here. And then, sorry, I think I want to, at this point, nope, I need to intensify even more. I was going to say, do I want to put the lines in yet? And I'm like, not quite yet. I want to get more blue, because that is certainly not the darkest that it can go, right? You see there? I don't want to go quite this dark because I want to be able to put the lines in and have you be able to see it. So the lines need to be a little like the darkest. All right. But I am going to intensify, which means just put another coat on here back in this area. There we go. So it's beginning to, yeah, I like the intensity. I think I'm going to go even a little bit darker right now, because this upper part of the mouth right here, you can get just that little bit darker, or the top of the head, that is. And then I'm dipping just a little bit of water and I'm going to sort of encourage it to come out. There we go. Okay, I'm getting happier with where it's going. There's a little bit of extra darkness over here. All right. Now, sometimes I will get to a certain point and I'll be like, you know what? I'm just going to walk away. I'm going to leave it. I'm going to let it fully dry. And then I'm going to come back and sort of evaluate where I am. That can help sometimes too. Do you need to bring some lines into here? Okay. Now let's look at putting some lines in there. So we're going to start the lines on the front side over here, the top side, because that's more dry, right? So I'm going to get some little bit darker, a little bit more paint on there. And woo, this takes a steady hand, right? If you want to. So I'm going to support my wrist here with my other hand so that I can do this without moving my wrist. Or if I need to move, I can make a smooth move because I'm moving this hand, not this hand. Okay. So much. All right. It's okay if the lines wobble, because actually the lines on the fish themselves wobble. Plus, it's a painting, it's not an actual fish. So you are allowed artistic license. Okay, so what's happening is that this, where I put the line down here, it's still wet. So the line went and just diffused like that, which is what I expected would happen with the areas that are wet, right? They're going to diffuse like that. Let me see if I can pull this a little bit closer for y'all. There. And then I'm going to move this down a little bit so that, can you still see the fish? Yeah, you can still see the illustration, but I thought I'd get a little bit closer for you. Um, let's do this. There, that'll help, right? Some of this is already dry. Yay. Okay. I can't go in here and like build this part until this is dry, all of that right there, the masking fluid. Okay, I want to put a little bit more. Let me try this area right here, just doing some little lines here because it's not too wet here. So I can sort of get the lines going. Right? Because I want to build my lines in here. All right, let's see. It's getting there from the picture I'm looking at there. It's getting there. Now, I do want to intensify just this area and this area right here. So I am going to go and put a little bit more of the super dark, picking up a bunch of it. Yee! That is quite dark. So if you want the drama, go for that dark, right? That'll give you the drama. There we go. And then this comes up just a little bit more. Nice. And then we need to bring a little more drama into the fin, right? A little more darkness right in here. And the nice thing is, well, the reason that I like these Velvet Touch brushes is the tip comes to quite the point. So I can get in here and I can make little lines. And sort of, so you can see the shape of the uh, fin there. There we go. Nice. It's getting there. It's getting there. Let me just do a little bit more along here to define the difference between those two parts. So it's getting there, right? It's beginning to look like a breaching whale. And let's see. I'm going to do a little bit more of the line here. Now that I have like the really dark on my brush, right? It's okay if you have multiple versions of those lines. I've got light versions of the lines. Now I'm putting in a darker version of the line, but that is a-okay. So I want to show you right up close there. That's multiple versions of those lines going along the back. And that happened to be a little bit darker. Okay, let's bring this here, holding, supporting. Some people use something called a maul stick, especially when you're oil painting or you're painting on a big easel. You have a long stick with a little ball on the end that's soft. And so that's called a maul stick. And you do the same thing with the maul stick. You put the maul stick along and then you rest your wrist on the maul stick, and that helps you to do the work. And then you can easily move the maul stick like this. MAHL, it's called. You can buy them. You can buy maul sticks. All right. Now I want to work a little bit more on this area right here. So I just got some darker on here. And I'm just defining the outline here. A little bit more. There we go. Defining the edge of it. And then I'm just using a very light touch with the tip of the brush. You can actually buy detail brushes, and they can help with this kind of thing too. Somewhere I have a whole set of detail brushes. I think I bought a set of detail brushes, and they just haven't come out of my, video to be reviewed stack yet. meaning I'll be doing a video review of the set that I got. Okay, nice, nice. Now I can't see in that picture where the eye is. I assume that the eye is somewhere, the head is tilted to the side and the eye is going to be somewhere like right around here. So I'm just going to sort of draw in what I think would be where the eye is. Just for the heck of it. All right, let's go thin again. So I'm just adding in some more lines. So anywhere that is dry, you can go ahead and draw more of your lines in. There we go. Nice. Now you're not going to see the lines so much in the dark area, but that's okay, right? You can't see them in the dark area here either. And the interesting thing is that the lines sort of wave a little bit in some areas. So I'm going to add some wavy lines in there too. Right on top of there. Why not? There we go. Some wavy lines down here. Because when I'm looking back at the picture, I'm like, oh, not all the lines are straight. There are some waves in the lines as well. I'll bring this up close so you can see in just a second. There we go. Nice. So there you are. So you can see some of those wavy lines as well as the straight lines in there. Okay, well, that's looking pretty good. Let's work on the background while this, that one's almost done drying. Let me see if there's any more water, like wetness that I could pick up there. It was a little bit there, a little bit there. Yeah. Okay. That's good. That's good. So we're going to work on this back area right here. So sort of the sky. And with the sky, I want it to be super, super wet. Let me see where, if, yes. Okay, good. I brought my silver brush. So this is called a quill brush right here. And it's very fluffy. You see how it's super fluffy? And so that helps you to get a lot of water on your surface. And so for the sky portion, let me show you the different areas. We have the water here. There's some water back here. There's some land right here. And then there's sky. So can you see the subtleness of the grays there? That's what we're going to work with right now, meaning the subtleness of the color scheme. So I'm going to work with first this area up here to just give us a nice sort of light gray. And I don't want to go over top of this, but I'm okay to go over top of the, right there, I put some of the, what is it called? The masking fluid. So I'm okay for that, but I'm not going to touch, I am not going to touch the blue of the whale. So oftentimes you want to wait until you've actually, this is dry, sort of before you do this, because I'm flooding the zone here with water in order to be able to get a nice, very barely there color. So I'm going to use this quill brush and I'm just pulling a tiny bit of blue into it. So let's see. Yes. You see how it's, I'll bring it up closer to you in just a minute. It's barely blue, barely there blue. Eek. Barely there. Trying not to touch what I've already painted. Okay. Now, if I wanted it to be even more barely there, what would I do? I'd just take my paper towel and go over it. and pick up some of the color, and it'll just sort of leave a stain there, a bit of a stain. But it's a color. It's color. It's just super light at this point. Deek. So let me show you. It's not white. Can you see? There's just a super light bit of color there. Now, if I want to intensify it, I can just by bringing in a little bit more of the blue, intensify it with a little bit more. But I want some contrast between the darkness of the fish, right? Of the, well, I guess it's not a fish, it's a mammal. A whale is a mammal, isn't it? Okay. So I'm more comfortable with a little more intense blue there. And then we're going to have the water is going to continue back here. This is dry enough now. So again, I want a light blue in this way. And I'm just going to make that sort of be, this is part of the water, isn't it? But I want to cover that. There we go. So that's a continuation of the water in that area. And if I want to get more of the waviness out of it, then I need to wait just a minute for that to dry a little bit. And then I will add more waves into this area. Now, the land part in the background here is a little bit darker gray. So again, I'm going to pull a little bit more color and then lay that in here. And it's okay to leave that little bit of white right next to your subject, right? Yee. So I want it to be a little darker right there. Little darker right along here. Oh, that's really dark. I did not want it to be that dark. That's okay. It's okay. I will work with it, bringing it up into the sky. As long as you have a good paper and you scrub it pretty quickly, you can get it to sort of fade out a little bit. There we go. I want a little bit more right around there. A little bit more right around there. All right. I actually want this to fade a little bit more into the background right there. So I just put a little bit more water on my brush so that I can, if you have good quality paper and good quality paint, you can work back into it. So I was just working back into it to soften, as long as it's still damp, you can soften those edges right there. So that you have more of a gradient coming in. Nice. Nice. Now I actually want to put a little more drama in the background where the water's going to be. Just a little, just a little. So I'm going to grab another layer here of the blue. And I'm just going to bring that again right into there and right across here. I just want it to be that little bit darker. And another thing that I can do is I can do a little bit of, what's it called? Spattering. But give me just a moment on the spattering. I want to just more water on the brush, trying to get it to be more of a gradient, right? Okay. I'm happy with how that's going. Happy with where it's going. Let's bring it down just a little bit more so you can see it. Maybe it's more in the center there. There. Okay. I'm going to need another paper towel because of all of this, all the water. Yikes. All the water pickup. Let's leave my brushes there. Um, okay, so I hope that anybody that's following along, that you are about with us here. And I like spatters, so let me see, there's a little something right there got on my paper. Eek. Oh, you know, another thing that we could do, since the paper's all wet, we could add salt to it. That's always fun too. But we don't want to wait for the salt to dry. So um, I do like spatters though. So let's get a small brush. So here's just a small brush like this. Okay. So I can pick up, there's a lot of, if you use a brush that has a fluffy head to it, you can pick up a bunch of water and a bunch of color. So I'm going to take another brush like this and I'm just going to tap. I'm going to tap over here. Isn't that fun? There we go. So that added an interest to it. Let's put maybe just a little bit more up in here. Just a little bit. Eek, not too much. Just to lend to the idea of spatter. Now, another thing you could do if you wanted to cheat is you could use gouache paint, which is an opaque watercolor. And so, wow, Mark V said, awesome. So this is a white gouache. This happens to be from Winsor Newton. And so if you wanted more white spray, you could always do it at the end, doing what I just did, sort of a splatter. But at the time that you do the splatter, you're going to do it with white, right? So that can help. These little dark spots, I don't want them to be too dark up there. So I'm lifting them up and not too dark over here either. There we go. Ah, it's fun. It's fun. It's looking good. It's looking good. So we need to let that dry for a minute, and then we'll come back and we will remove the masking fluid, and then you'll get to see like the white of the paper pop back out. Okay, but we're gonna have to set this aside and let it dry because there's still a lot of milkiness or wetness going on there, and that has to dry before we can take the masking fluid off. So it's gonna sit right over here next to me. Come on, you can do it. You can do it. Ugh. There we go. Okay, so it is sitting there. And now we're going to try this, which is the lots of water. And you're gonna want a spray bottle of water. And like I said, he's using a paint that is granulating. So I'm gonna use my lunar black. This is when I wanna use the lunar black. Okay, now I can pull the lunar black out right there. And let me put this picture up here. Bill, make sure, can y'all still see that? Ooh, okay. So I am getting paint all over my phone and everywhere, but you know what? It's okay. It's all right. For you, it's all right. Okay. It looks like you can still see it. I'll bring it down just a little bit more. So we're going to use the Lunar Black. That's the one from Daniel Smith, like this. And Lunar Black has super granulating. So you've got granulating colors and then you've got super granulating colors. So let me show you that, an example of that. Ultramarine blue. Everybody knows ultramarine blue. Well, it depends on the brand, but most of the time, ultramarine blue. And you know what? This has tons of blue in it, doesn't it? So we are going to change that. I'm going to dump that out. And we are going to change that. And more water here. We'll clean the brush so that we're just working with black. Well, we're going to start with the ultramarine blue, but that's okay. I'm just going to show you the difference between the granulation and the, so a little granulation versus a lot of granulation, okay? So we've got ultramarine blue. This is the core version, but ultramarine blue is well known as a blue that has some granulation in it. So I'm just gonna get my brush nice and wet here and grab some of the ultramarine blue and lay a bunch of it down with a bunch of water because the granulation you really see when you use a lot of water. Whoa, hello. This is the core, and it is quite in your face. That's what I love about the core colors is they're so bright. So bright. Wow. Okay, so we're gonna let that dry for a minute and see if we can get some granulation out of it. But usually ultramarine blue has slight granulation to it. So let's take the lunar, I'm gonna use the lunar blue. So we're doing blue to blue, okay? Because it's lunar blue, lunar black, lunar violet, lunar red, and lunar earth are the lunar colors from Daniel Smith. So here's the lunar blue. I'm gonna take some out of here. Woo, okay. I'm gonna drag it out with a bunch of water. And then, yes, we're gonna be watching paint dry. It is what it is. And the reason these granulate so much here, Mars Black, which is PBK11. I'm looking at what colors are in this tube, the lunar blue. So it's Mars Black, which is PBK11, and Phthalo Blue, which is PB15. So it's a combination of black and blue, but um, it just heavily granulates. And you can already see as it's drying, you can see some of the separation of the colors here. And it's going to begin to get grainy. Here, it's a single pigment. There's no separation of the colors. And it's got a slight graininess as it's drying right here. Slight. But this one is, so this is lightly granulating and this is heavily granulating. So let me see if I can show you on here because this color, lunar blue dry. And if I hold this up closely, I think you can see in here, and this is the lunar black, violet here, the lunar black. Can you see all the little grains in there? And then if I move you over to the blue, again, there are lots of little, this graininess in there. So it's super granulating. It has big pigment size in it. And I love that. I love super granulating. Um, Not everybody likes that. A friend of mine does not like granulating paints. She's like, ultramarine blue, because it granulates a little bit. And she likes the very sort of transparent and smooth paints. But this ultramarine blue, I can already see some granulation right there. And this, of course, you can see lots of separation and granulation there. So that is what granulation does. And when you're doing a painting like this gentleman, there's a lot of granulation in these very watery works that he's doing there. So let's take another piece here of this again is the Canson XL watercolor paper. And we're going to use that granulating black, which is the lunar black. So I'm going to rehydrate it, meaning I'm adding a bunch of water to it because they were beginning to get dry. And you can even see right now all the little particles in there. That just makes me so happy. So what this artist does is he doesn't hold the brush here. He holds it way back here because he wants the brush to be more fluid on the page. So let's do that. I'm picking up a bunch of the black. And I'm going to create the base of the tree here. Just adding a bunch of paint. But I'm using the back end of my brush so the line is a little more fluid. It's okay to have broken lines. So if you can see here, the line's not solid, that's okay. That's called broken lines. And that is all right. Let me move this up just a little bit. I'm going to come in some more color, more like that. It's an old tree, right? Lots of the black, lots and lots. It's already granulating heavily, but we want to spray it with water. So I want lots of paint on here. And that's going to come out this way on this side. And now what we're going to do is we're going to spray it with water and see what happens. Okay, here we go. Spray bottle. Now we're going to use gravity to our advantage. So we're going to turn it. We're going to spray it. We're going to let it run. Oh, so fun. A lot of water is getting everywhere. Okay. And it is a-okay. And you can see all of the separation of the pigment. So all the runniness of the pigment. Oh, fabulous. And then we're going to grab some more black and we're going to come right into here. And I'm going to say, ooh, okay, I want to have a little thing that like branches off here. It's okay if you see how it's spreading. That is okay, because that's all part of the process for creating something that's just very loose. I'm turning the brush as I'm moving it. I'm just turning it. We want to get some of that branchiness and spreading. Lots of color here, even though it's only black. I mean, lots of black color. And we're going to spray again. So we're just laying down more. Right? This is what he's doing. He's just giving us this worn old tree. We're letting the paint do the work. And he actually uses another color as well. But for this exercise, we're just doing a monotone. All right, let's see what we can do to bring some more bring a little bit more water. Lots of water, lots of paint. This may work with your Mars Black on Mark V, because the Mars Black is what they were using in the lunar colors. They're using a Mars Black. Okay, let's get in here. Let's spray it a little bit more. And then I'm actually going to get a paper towel here. It's okay to bring the paint off the side of the page. So you see here, I'm just letting it run off the side of the page. And then let's bring it down. That gives you that very ethereal sort of look to it. Let's bring it back this way. Bring it back out here. Eee! I love the way it makes the paint look all streaky. because it's a very granulating paint. Let's go in with more paint so we get more, because this is just turning into a blob, but we want to put some definition into the blob here. There we go. Interesting, interesting, right? Well, I can bring another tree up here, like a sapling, right? Bring this sapling over here and work a little bit more with some thicker paint on the body right here. So we can define the difference between the tree trunk, the darkness of the tree trunk, and some of the other areas. I can see where I might have to wait for it to dry in order to pull out some of the other spindly branches like this. Now, this is the first time I'm doing this process. And of course, he's been doing it for a long time. So he knows exactly which paint he likes to do it with. And uh, the timing of it and the paper, because the paper makes a difference as well. So this is fun though. We're beginning to see something happening here. I'm enjoying that. Now he actually has another color in there that he would drop in and let it intermingle with the black. Now there is a lot of wetness here, so it does help to leave the wetness and let the wetness dry a little bit and then come back in with your more defining darks. Let's see here. I'm just going to make it look like there's another tree maybe in the background there. Okay. I like where this is going. Of course, it's not quite, wouldn't this be a great thing to do for Halloween, right? So I'm just letting my brush do its thing. So I'm holding it way back here at the back and seeing if I can get some interesting wispiness out of it. Now I want the base here to be more dark. And then let's just do that. Okay, that's it. Looks like there's a tree behind the tree. So let's go ahead and make this part of this tree a little more defined like this, so that it's going to look like two separate trees. Let's get some more dark going there. While it's very wet, it can be difficult to get the concentration of black that I want. There we go. Okay, that's very interesting. That's a fun sort of try out. Let's work on this side a little bit more. Actually, a little more water in the brush, because what we're doing here is we've got darkness versus the lighter. That went off that side. Okay. I'm going to say there's a little more darkness right there. And then, of course, this is like super dark coming up here. So it looks like there's a tree in the back and a tree in the front. Now, if I wanted to take away some of the blackness, like say right along here, I want a better definition between those two trees. I can take just water in my brush and come along here and lift out some of the color. So that is another way to bring back your lights, but you need to do it while the paint is still sort of damp. So that makes it look like there's a sort of a little bit of a separation between the two trees, right? So I'm just adding a little bit of gray back in there so that you see separation. You're like, okay, that's behind this. And actually, if I pull a little bit more of this out, so it's more gray than it is dark, I'm just adding more water. There we go. Then it looks like it's back behind, right? And what I want to do is I want to bring a little bit here. So it looks like this tree has another root there. So once you do that initial sort of putting down your colors and doing your water and seeing where everything's going, then you can begin to define things by doing the push and pull, the back and forth. There we go. A little bit more darkness right there. Okay, so it looks like we have a tree back here, right? This reminds me of in Florida, we have big banyan trees, and the banyan trees grow up and they make a huge canopy. Huge! Like you could build a house inside some of those banyan trees. So that's what this is making me feel like is we're working on a banyan tree here. And I want to bring a little more blackness definition up into here. I actually want this to be a little bit larger. There we go. So now the part in the back is going to look like it's coming from the tree in the back. So if I darken this a little bit in the front with more paint, so if I darken it a little bit more, then it will look like this tree, which is darker, is in the front, right? Nice. Okay, it's turning into something now. Darkening that. I'm going to darken this just a little bit more and bring it up and out. Okay, that's fun. That's very interesting effect. And of course, if you want to keep playing, just keep putting more paint on and spraying it more with water. Try different spray bottles because they have different amounts of spray that come out of them. And but I like that. I like where that's going. I love the softness. Can you see the granulation, the heavy granulation that's coming out here? That is super cool. I see something that he does here where he darkens certain excuse me, areas there. So I can see, for instance, here, we would want to come in and we would darken this right here. So he begins to darken some areas, and that leaves grays, lighter grays in other areas. Interesting. Okay. Fun, fun, fun. So there it is. You can get a better picture of that. If you're going to notice, this paper is loose on the pad. Do you see that? where it comes off of the pad, right? It's only glued up here. But when you use lots of water like we were just using here, what I want to show you is, do you see how the paper is bowing? The paper is bowing a lot. And so if you're going to do a process like this that uses a lot of water, it can be helpful to either, well, you can prepare the paper. So to prepare the paper ahead of time, you can soak the piece of paper in water. Just put the whole thing in water and then pull it out and just sponge it off on the front and the back and let it dry. And then, so the fibers become moist. Then you can take it and glue it down, tape it down onto a board. And that's called stretching your watercolor paper. And then your watercolor paper will be ready to be used um, for painting, and it won't bow up like this one is. This one is all rippled like this. That's one way. Um, Another way that some artists like to do this is they will fully wet the back of the paper. So they'll have a loose sheet and they'll pull the back of the paper off. I mean, they'll pull the paper off the pad. They'll wet the entire back side of the paper, and then they'll set that paper down on their painting surface, and it suctions the paper onto the painting surface just because of the water. And then you can paint on the front of it. So getting the front of it wet, and it doesn't do this curling like this, because then both sides of the paper have water on them, and that helps to keep the paper flat. So those are two ways that you can stretch your watercolor paper, and that helps to prevent the bowing that's going on right now in this one, because this one is just taped here. Now you can also buy paper in a block. I'm looking to see if I have a paper block here. Yeah, I do. So this is a Legion Stonehenge watercolor paper, and it is a block. So it is glued on this side and it is glued on this side, so that when you work on it, you get less bowing. Now there's another company called Arches or Arche, and they are glued on all four sides, and there's a little section where there's no glue so that you can separate it after you're finished with your painting. And so oftentimes I like to paint on a block when I'm using lots of water, because that way it doesn't bow as much. All right, that's one of my tricks that I do with that. So let's set that aside. That was fun though. I like that. I could see working back into that, giving the tree a little bit of time to dry, and then lifting and moving some more and getting it like that. Is that fun? Oh my gosh, it's so much fun. All right, let's go back to this one. So here, this is dry. Now, normally I would have gone back in and I would work a little bit more over here to just darken the water a little bit more, give a little bit more of the waves and stuff. But we want to move along. So all of these areas that are kind of an aqua color, that is where I put the masking fluid. You can take it off with your finger. Just make sure that your finger's clean. Okay, so I'm going to put it in water and make sure that my finger is totally clean and dry, because you don't want to lift any of the watercolor paint, right? You only want to lift the masking fluid. Okay, let's make sure my finger's nice and dry. I don't want to smudge the watercolor. And that's why I like to use that special kind of pickups eraser. And if you're on YouTube, I'd ask that you like the stream. And if you can make a comment or subscribe, that would be awesome. Thank you. Okay, so we are going to start lifting the masking fluid. You're not going to see it much right here, because right here there was It's very light blue, so you can't really see it so much. Here, we should be able to see it come up better. Yep, we can see the white better here. So I am just rubbing over it, and I'll pull it up closer to you in just a moment, but you'll be able to see that white. Even when I use my finger, oftentimes I'll go back over it with the little pickup eraser, because I don't want to leave any latex gum on the surface. Okay, here we go. It's going to give it a really cool effect. Oh, I'm going to cover it up because I don't want you to see the whole thing yet while I open up the app on my iPad. Okay, here we go. That's it on that side. And then I'm going to pick it up on this side, and you're going to see the effect. It's very cool. But a lot of companies make masking fluid, and that's what it's for. Even this Pebeo masking fluid is really cool because you can use it on top of acrylics as well, and mask out areas of your acrylics, which is amazing if you're working on an acrylic painting. But most people use it for watercolor or mixed media paper. Okay, there we go. Now let's show it to you so you can see that white area. So you see how it preserved the white? Is that fun? Oh my gosh. I remember I wasn't doing it very particularly using a brush and making the marks just perfect. I was using that wonky pen, which I love to use to get very organic shapes. Yeah, but it looks fantastic. I love how it came out. Okay, so that was single color, single color. I'll go back and I'll work on this rose and get it get it to look more like a rose. But it's a little more tedious than doing something like this. It's a little more flowy and fun. All right. Um, love the sea foam, right, Mark? Now, the cool thing is with that uh, drawing gum in particular from Pebeo, their masking fluid, you can put it on a toothbrush. And I actually keep toothbrushes right here at my painting station. I'm looking for a toothbrush right. Of course, I can't put my hand on a toothbrush right this moment, even though I know I have bunches of them in here. So I use the toothbrushes to spatter, and you can add a little bit of water. You When you get a new jar of the masking fluid, I know in particular you can do it with Pebios. I don't know about the other brands. You can try it. But with the Pebeo masking fluid, you can add up to 50% water to it and mix it real well, with a stir stick of some sort. And then dip your paint your not paintbrush, I'm sorry, dip your um, toothbrush into it, and then just go along the edges of the toothbrush bristles, and you'll get foam. You can get foam, you can get fog. That's the way that you make foam and fog. It's so funny because I know that I have, yes, here's one. I have several, but here's one. So what I would do is I'd get a little cup, like a little disposable cup, and I would put some of the masking fluid in it and just add a couple drops of water. So you'll use a dropper to add a little bit of water. And then you take your toothbrush and you mix it around in it. And then you'll take your toothbrush and you'll just go like that. And what that will do is that will give you the sea foam. You can use it for waves. You can use it for fog if you're doing a landscape. It looks amazing. Make sure that you wait until it's completely dry and then go in with your paint, and it will preserve the white like that. And I just I, I wasn't expecting to show you that, but I'm like, oh, we're doing a fish. You know, we're doing a whale. So let me go ahead and show it to you. And I'm glad that I did because I love working with masking fluid and the magic that it can do for you. All right, that is it for the workshop